Good morning. It is 6 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we're starting the hour a little bit different this time here. We've got joining us on the phone here today, Representative Yvette Herrell. She is there in D.C. working today. Good morning, ma'am. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
Good. I'm glad. I know you guys are busy, and you might be doing some voting and stuff here today, but thank you for spending a few minutes here with us. Obviously, the media, the world's looking at Congress right now for this infrastructure bill and the craziness and the back and forth there. I was talking with you here just a few minutes ago, and I want to ask about this because when we watch what's going on the news, and obviously everyone probably depending on which news you look at, but the impression you kind of get is it's all Democrat leadership, arguing back and forth. We have Representative Manchin kind of, being the thorn in the side for most of the party here. But my question is, are they even talking to the conservative side here? I mean, is there anybody in that conversation, or are you all just waiting and seeing on what they decide to bring up a vote here?
Yeah, they are not having very many conversations with Republican leadership.
Yeah.
So we're clearly in the same kind of boat as the rest of America. So
Gotcha.
let's be very clear on this whole thing so people have a real context. Of course, this has been the infrastructure. There's two bills, the infrastructure and reconciliation bill.
Yes. Yeah.
The big fight has been to do them as one package. So, of course, the President of the United States wants them in one package. Nancy Pelosi wants one package. Chuck Schumer wants one package. And several members of the Progressive Caucus want one package. But then you've got a lot of other people that say, this is crazy spending. We can't afford it. They always say this bill has no cost to the Americans, but I can go through a few lists of costs that are going to hit us directly in the pocketbook. So they're in disarray. And what's, I think, also fueling the whole issue is the fact that the voter turnout and the wins on Tuesday night, America is waking up. They are wondering about education, border, economy. I mean, they want to see different governance. And for some reason, Pelosi and her team still want to push this through. And so that's where it is right now. This will be, I have to remind you, Mike, this will be the sixth time that Nancy has said she's got the votes to do it. So here we are. Obviously, I was flying out of D.C. this afternoon to fly back to district. I don't know if that is even going to happen, which I'm happy to be here to vote no on these bills. Mm-hmm. But let me just, on this, the infrastructure bill, taking one at a time, the infrastructure bill is $1.5 trillion. That passed the Senate with bipartisan support, and I'm sorry that Republicans voted for it because less than 9% of the bill actually go towards true infrastructure, like roads, highways, bridges, what we think of in terms of infrastructure. And here's the kicker. There have been a couple of bills introduced up here saying, hey, we've got over $1 trillion of unspent CARES package money. Let's take that money that's already been earmarked out of the government coffers and use that money for true infrastructure. But they won't hear of it because that makes sense.
Sure.
But remember, in that infrastructure bill, it's the tax on individual miles being driven. It creates the climate core. I mean, it's really phase one of the Green New Deal. And the reconciliation bill is actually phase two. But I want everybody to understand the reconciliation bill is being written as you and I right now are talking. They have not even finished it. It's over 2,400 pages.
Gosh.
All of our team and the teams of every committee, every member, we're all grabbing as much as we can as it comes out. And typically on a budget bill or a bill this big, the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, scores the bill, so it can tell, it kind of gives a guideline how much it's going to cost the American people, what the taxes look like. They can really look at the bigger picture and see what the bill is really going to do in terms of economy, GDP, etc. They don't even have a score on the bill yet. They're saying they do, but we know if they truly did, they would have already told us that. That's how we know how bad it is. But just listen to some of the stuff, and this is why I will vote no for both of these bills. But on the infrastructure, I mean, this is the one that's going to give $80 billion to the IRS so that as we, as just Americans, make exchanges in our bank accounts up to $10,000 in a given year, and it sounds like a lot of money. That's not. That's what, $200 a week. But if you get to that $10,000 threshold, this bill gives the IRS the ability to then free reign looking at your personal finances. So how, when, where, what you spend your personal money on. The last thing we need in our lives is more government, and especially more IRS.
Amen.
This one's going to give amnesty to up to 8 million illegals, and we'll talk about that $450,000 situation in a minute. But this is going to give. What it does is it eliminates work requirements to receive welfare payments. So right now, when you're receiving benefits, you normally have to go look for work, prove that you went out into the workforce to try to find a job. They're taking that away. So now it's on your honor system. It's, hey, I can't find a job. So those checks will keep coming. And that's at a time, Mike, when our unemployment rate is, I mean, we have 10.4 million people out of work right now. And somehow paying people to stay at home is going to fix it. But what's really hurtful for New Mexico is the tax, the raising the taxes on natural gas, which affects almost everything. I mean, heating, you know, and we're already seeing what a disaster things are. In fact, here's what's sad. This administration has already said this is going to be the most expensive holiday coming up, Thanksgiving, in Americans' recent memory. And you know why? Because there's no governance at the top level. The price of gas is up. Mm-hmm. I mean, turkeys, I think they called it the turkey tax. You know, turkeys are up, I think they said 16%.
Sure.
You know, food, just normal groceries, supplies. Mm-hmm. And it could all have been eliminated if we had true governance. We could have kept the border secure. We could have gotten people back off the couch into the workforce and really helped jumpstart the economy. You know, and here's what I find most frustrating. There's a dumpster fire every day in Washington, D.C., and the media, everybody just jumps from one issue to the next, but we never, ever put anything to bed. For instance, open border. Mm-hmm. We're still dealing with this mask mandate. No one's talking about the Americans still left in Afghanistan. We've got hundreds of cargo ships sitting off the coast of California that are just barely starting to get brought inland for dispatch.
And that was all political, too.
It's all political.
Yeah.
You know, the mask mandates, all these things, you know, we're going to lift some of the sanctions in terms of mask mandates and vaccination mandates on people coming here for non-essential services. But we're going to require some to be vaccinated, some not, some to prove they've had a COVID test, some not. You know, so we're completely trying to get too involved in commerce that could be good for New Mexico and the country. And yet we're going to keep the border wide open. You know, if it was truly a matter of our health, safety, and welfare, then we would have shut down the border and really tightened our belts in terms of keeping the spread low.
Sure.
But that's how you can tell this whole thing is a hoax. And then when you stand up, not a hoax in that it's not serious. Let me rephrase that. I mean, I've had friends who have passed away from COVID. I get
but the measures being taken aren't for your health; they're for political. That's
exactly. It's yes, and I'm saying just like suddenly our parents and grandparents that are getting interested and taking an active role in their children's education, now they're being targeted as domestic terrorists. I mean, this is so backwards. That we are really being stripped of our constitutional rights, our freedoms, and our nation as we know it. And so it's super frustrating. But there's a good chance, Mike, that they're going to get this done today. Mm-hmm. And what they're going to do, I just got out of a meeting with Leader McCarthy. He just met with several of us. Mm-hmm. I think what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to do both bills together, which they won't get it passed. But then they're going to go ahead and try to do the infrastructure. So remember, infrastructure already passed the Senate. So when it passes the House, it'll go straight to the president's desk for signature.
Gotcha. So it's done after the House is done with it, for the most part.
Yeah. If they get the infrastructure bill done, which is not a good bill, it will go directly for signature. The reconciliation bill will go to the Senate. And here's the thing that's so funny to me. Senator Manchin has already said he's not going to take this bill up he is not going to entertain the idea of this bill because, and his words were, it's budget gimmicks. That's what they're trying to do. In fact, he said the bill itself is actually over $4 trillion in terms of spending.
Okay.
But because the way they're trying to do these sunsets and do these little gimmicks within the bill, they're trying to fool the American people.
So let me ask, and this is my naivete here. So in the House, by combining these two bills, is that a tactic to try to avoid this other bill to go back to the Senate altogether, so Manchin and them can't get their hands on it? Is that why they're doing this, or is there another reaon?
Well, they'd have to send it back to the Senate,
Okay.
but they can do it as a bundle. But the thing of it is phase 1 and phase 2 of the Green New Deal.
Okay.
There is more money in these bills collectively to jumpstart this Green New Deal, to totally destroy our energy portfolio in our state and in our nation. It will make us completely energy dependent on other nations, when just at the beginning of this year, we were completely energy dependent.
Sure.
We didn't need OPEC. And as soon as he signed the Keystone Pipeline executive order to stop that, and now, have put these regulations, these taxes on our producers. And now he's meaning the president, asking OPEC to drill oil for us when we're sitting on the most valuable reserves in the world. And in fact, in New Mexico has 2 of the top producing counties in the country. It makes no sense. And here's what's so funny. It's all about climate. It's all about, global warming. Well, here's my question. If it's all about climate and we're so worried, when they had the meetings in Scotland, do you know they had so many private jets flying into that
Right.
that they were having to drop off? Yeah, they had to drop off their people and then fly the plane to other airports around the country because they didn't have room. But here's the thing. If Zoom is good enough for our kids' education and good enough for our executive meetings and good enough for our country, then it should have been good enough for this climate meeting that our president clearly was so overly excited about it. He slept through most of it. But this is why it becomes just almost a joke. And here's the sad part. The people who this is affecting and impacting are us, are the Americans, the small business owner, the business, the American worker, the families, the communities. I mean, we're all sitting here living in the real world, and we've got this facade of, I've not talked to one constituent in the entire district that has ever said to me, we really do want to make sure our water is not drinkable and that our air quality is horrible. Nobody says that.
Right.
Because we know the best stewards of the land are the people, the industries, and the communities that live in and around, whether it's our forest or our oil patch, those who actually make a living from the natural resources around us. And, so it's a kind of a bad argument for them to have. But I believe, I really felt good about Tuesday night because it felt like, even though we're in the minority and we don't have the Senate or this president, people are going, wait a minute, this is out of control.
Sure. I know, and we're running short on time, but I did want to touch on Tuesday just real quick. And it just so happened right at the beginning, we were talking, there's Fox News on the background, and then they had a comment from OAC about the Tuesday Virginia election. And I think the headline they put was, she said it was too much of a moderate campaign. And that was the reason why they lost. And I just chuckled when I saw that. And then you brought it up here. I was like, no, it's a symbol of people are tired of progressive extreme stuff. They want more moderate conservative.
That's right. It's right. I mean, it's gotten just so off course that, we can always agree that there would be changes under a new administration. There would be, the pendulum would shift, of course, but to the extent and the extreme, these things in these bills, tax credits for electric bicycles. Well, I just don't know how many people in the second congressional, outside of maybe in Las Cruces, would even entertain the idea of having an electric vehicle. The list just goes on and on what it does. But it includes, again, the Civilian Climate Corps, which this would employ thousands of young people to work on climate change and mitigation projects. Well, again, if we can find thousands of young people that want to go to work, you almost kind of think, well, good.
Sure.
But that's just such a dumb idea. Instead of thinking about what we can do best for the American family and the American worker and the American business owner, and then as if, I'm telling you, Mike, every day you wake up and you think it just can't get worse, and then suddenly we're facing this potential payout to those who came here illegally in the tune of $450,000 per family member, so up to about $1 million per family. And I'm sitting here thinking, in fact, I said it in a press conference the other day, no other country in the world would pay people who break the law, come here illegally, and then reward them for that. This is more than the victims of 9/11 and more than our Gold Star families get paid for a loss of a loved one.
Yeah.
It is so crazy. I mean, it makes zero sense. And that's why I think that's not a Republican Democrat thing. That is an insult to everybody, and especially service members and those who have died honorably in service, whether it was at 9/11 and whatnot. So those are the kinds of things that I think most Americans are looking at going, okay, hold on, that's just a bridge too far.
Yep.
And we're such a giving nation as it is. But the other thing that, Mike, no one talks about, the cost to the American taxpayer for this open border, for this Afghan resettlement program, the spending in this bill, if they did them both, the $1.5 trillion, even if they lowered it down to close to $2 trillion, that does not equal zero to the American taxpayer. It actually is going to be, in fact, this will be the biggest tax increase to the American people in American history. So this is, the talking points they have. I think they're having a hard time, and the news is going to have a hard time talking about this bill because it really is going to affect everybody. And it's just a shame.
It's basically being turned into what Pelosi said a couple years ago. We won't know what's in it till we pass it.
That's it. Well, I did a press conference this week, and I said that. I said, hey, we're going backwards instead of forwards. 10 years ago, she said we got to pass it to see what's in it. That is exactly what is happening. I mean, literally, I'm not joking when I tell you the bill is being written as we speak. They're still tweaking it. But, the other day I told people, the one that's reconciliation, the name we call it up here is Bernie Sanders budget bill. This is Bernie Sanders, but this is a wish list for crazy progressive ideas and implementation of the Green New Deal. And I said at the press conference, I said, remember the old slogan, feel the burn? I said, if we pass this, if Democrats get this through, the only people that are going to be burned are the American people, because this bill is so dangerous and so reckless for our economies, for our kids, for what it's doing to already a weakened workforce. I mean, just you can go across the board, pick any subject, and this tax, this emissions tax on ag. Here's one quick thing, and I know we've got to go, but there's always typically been a tax on oil and gas on emissions. This time, the bill does not exempt ag. It doesn't say it's going to include ag, but it does not explicitly exempt ag. And so what the bill is it's about $6,000 per cow in a dairy and about $4,000 per cow on a beef farm. And so what's very concerning to me, and we've already been talking obviously to our dairy associations in New Mexico and so forth, but because they're not explicitly exempting ag in this emissions tax, we can't know if they'll absolutely implement it or not. I don't trust this government, so I think they will.
So literally, pardon the pun here, we're going to start taxing cow farts.
100%. 100%. That's
Welcome
exactly
to America.
We're taxing a new kind of gas. I mean, it's just they know no end. There's no limit to the stupidity that happens up here. That is the one thing that's been a little bit surprising. I knew there was lack of common sense, but to the extent we see here, it's absolutely unreal. And there's rumors that Pelosi will not run for re-election. There's rumors that she may not even finish this term, but she is going to do everything she can in her power to be able to hang her hat on these two ridiculous bills. It's kind of the end-all, be-all for her.
Yeah, it's her legacy.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Because she's on her, farewell tour. I mean, tomorrow she's supposed to leave to go to Europe again for the third time this year. because we're all about, saving the planet and not, everybody else gets ridiculed for flying around the country, but she goes and
Sure.
nobody thinks anything of it. So the double standard, I think that's what Americans and New Mexicans are waking up to, this double standard of allowing, people to come here illegal and get all these benefits, but yet we want to pass a bill to put 80,000 more IRS agents on, and so they can just target American taxpayers, American business owners. I mean, I think people are starting to wake up to see how ridiculous all of this is going, is starting to be.
Yeah, well, more to come. Stay tuned. Congresswoman, we do appreciate the time. We appreciate you there is in D.C. defending and trying to save as many of these things as possible. And hopefully you'll have some more help coming soon in the next election cycle here. So.
Oh yeah, I just keep praying about it, and we just need to stick to our guns, stick to our freedoms, and keep the vision of the people of America in the forefront. And I think we can still come out of this okay, but it's not going to be easy.
All right. Well, thank you, ma'am. Try to get some rest in between the funniness that's going on there today in Capitol Hill.
It sounds good, Mike. Okay, you have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and look forward to talk to you again soon.
You bet.
Awesome.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
All right. Thank you. That was awesome. Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, thank you for spending a few minutes here with us.